Good morning, everybody. I'm Larry Weissoon. If you enjoy real-world hunting and fishing talk, you're really going to enjoy listening to my good friend, Luke Clayton, and his guest for the next hour.
This is David Fox, and welcome to Outdoors with Luke Clayton and Friends. Luke has been a recognized outdoors writer for the past 3 decades and writes for a host of outdoor publications. Luke pens a weekly newspaper outdoors column that appears in over 40 Texas newspapers. Luke is on the pro staff of Pyramid Air, your one-stop shop for everything air gun related. Smoking techs, electric smokers, feel free to contact Luke through his website, catfishradio.org. Now let's join Luke and his guests for this week's show.
Well, friends, welcome to this week's show. We've got a lot of fun people set up here. And our first one, always, Campfire Talk here with Mr. Larry Weissoon. Larry and I have been doing this segment of this show for 19 years, every week. We have been. So, Larry, thanks for being here. And our goal is to, let's lock in on another. Let's me and you sign a pact for the next 10 years. What do you say?
You got a deal.
Okay.
You got a deal. I'll even sign that in blood if I need to. Look, it has been such an absolute great pleasure. Can't even talk this morning. Great pleasure. All these years that we've done these things, and we've been so very fortunate. We've had a lot of great people that allow me to spend time on the radio with you, and so appreciative of them, but also the many listeners that are out there. But we really I need to thank Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable. Taurus, which makes the Raging Hunter handguns I've really been hunting a lot with here as of late. Stealth Vision, the best optics made anywhere. Vineyard Max made, so many of these companies are based out of Texas kind of thing, and they make the best deer bait there ever was. It's also good for deer. That's the good thing. And if you're going to use it outside of Texas, always be sure to check the local regulations as to whether or not you can legally bait or not. And been shooting, a fair amount of Mossberg guns over the years, but also need to truly thank Dallas Safari Club, DSC, which is to me the world's greatest and finest organization there is having to do anything with hunting and wildlife conservation, and it's conservation education and hunter advocacy, and kind of save them for last, and then I want to move on to something else. But we've got a convention coming up in February. It's going to be back in Atlanta while they're working on the K. Bailey Hutchinson Center there in Dallas, where you have had it in the past. But those dates are February 6th through the 8th, if I recall correctly. And they can learn more by going to biggame.org. And, with all that said, Luke, I got a question for you. And I know some of the answers. But I know, are there any shots that you've made in the past, whether it's at a hog, a deer, squirrel, or whatever, that are extremely memorable? And I'm asking about it in 2 different ways. Memorable where you made the shot, and memorable where you didn't connect.
Yes, sir. Me and you and I guess everybody that's ever hunted a lot,
Right.
If you've got, years of hunting to reflect back upon, for sure, there are, and some of them. Actually, I'm thinking I have to. I have the privilege of writing a newspaper column every week for a bunch of newspapers, and I think that will be the topic of next week's newspaper column.
Perfect.
I'll tell you real quick. The first memorable shot that I ever made, I was probably about 8 years old or 9. Larry, and I can tell this real quickly, and I know you could spend 5 hours talking about shots. And I want you to, there's one that I remember about you and a Coos deer that I want you to tell too, and just a bit here. Yes, sir. But I was about 9 maybe. I had a J.C. Higgins bolt action single shot 22 that was made by Sears, J.C. Higgins, and it had a knurled bolt, and back when I was a little kid, I had to bear down to pull that bolt back. It was pretty hard to pull, but I had one of those, and I'd hunt rabbits and squirrels. Back in those days, it wasn't uncommon for a 9-year-old boy to get cut loose with a 22. I did, and I know you did. Nowadays, you don't see so much of that. It's probably, we survived and we had a good time. But anyway, there was armadillos. We lived out in the country, of course, and we had these little pier and beam foundation under the, there was on the house, but there was little openings where people could get in there and fix plumbing, I guess, whatever. I don't know.
Sir.
I guess that's why they were left, little slots under that pier and beam foundation. Well, the armadillos had moved in mass. They were digging up holes for my dad was raising Cain about them, mowing around them and all that. So he said, okay, boy, we were in the house actually, and we saw outside, 2 or 3 armadillos hopping around out there digging. He said, take that rifle, let's me and you go around the house and sneak up in here, and I want you to shoot one while he's still, And I said, oh, that'll be easy to do. Well, seeing those sights at night is different than seeing them in the daylight,
Yes, it is.
Anyway, so we went around, and we snuck up within, 30 yards of a couple of armadillos in there, we'll forget. And he was nudging me like, go ahead, shoot them. I couldn't see my sights. So he had a flashlight with him. And he said, he whispered, I'm going to cut the light on, and you better shoot quick.
Right.
So he cut the light on, and man, those things, as they used to say in the country, lit a shuck. You ever heard that expression?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I have.
Well, folks, what that means is they ran like crazy. And one of them, this is a shot I'll never forget, ran toward that opening in the pier and beam foundation. Well, I just sighted in on the hole there under the house, and as soon as that rascal hopped, I shot him right through the head running, and that, of course, was mostly luck, but that's one of those shots I'll never forget, man. I was about 9 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Larry, your coos deer, that was truly, of course, that was by an experienced hunter yourself from many years of hunting. But you've told me that story many times. That was a long, long, long shot, wasn't it?
It really was. I was hunting coos whitetail down in Sonora, Mexico, and they're so much fun to hunt in so many different ways. They're small, and even a big one doesn't have a real big rack. But we found one, a buck that, for those who in the score kind of thing, a good coos deer will score Boone and Crockett wise about 100. Mm-hmm. We found one that we knew was a whole lot bigger and spotted him a long way off. Tried every way in the world to get closer to this animal, but there was just in a situation where he was bedded. There was no way to get any closer. And finally, I sat down, and thankfully I had a rangefinder with me, and had a Ruger American, which is a relatively inexpensive rifle in 30-06, some Horned D American whitetail ammo. But I'd shot that rifle a bunch out to 1,000 yards just for playing more than anything else. Never dreaming that I would have to shoot anything anywhere close to that distance. But with this particular deer, he was an absolute monster, and there just wasn't any way to get closer. We looked at every possible way that we could do it, and finally I knew that I'd shot that rifle a bunch at that distance, which I'd ranged at a little over 800 yards, and knew the drop. And thankfully there wasn't hardly any kind of wind at all, and what little bit there was kind of directly in my face, so I wasn't real concerned about windage of the bullet drifting too far off, and got all set up, and Chapo Vera was the guy, and I told Chapo, I said, you get spot and scope on him, see where if I miss where the bullet goes. Well, I shoot, and this deer was bedded underneath kind of a little bit of tree, and I saw that bullet hit about 15, 20 feet behind this deer. And so I knew, I'd shot over him, and the deer turned around, look, and when he did, I jacked in another one. By then I'd figured out, where I needed to hold, and ended up shooting in second time, and this deer just absolutely dropped, just felt, he just laid down. That was it. He was in his bed to begin with. And that's by far the longest shot. Now, I would never attempt that kind of shot had I not known that rifle and that ammunition, and had I done it numerous times in the past, shooting at steel at that distance. So I knew that, the drop, I had the things where I could compensate. Mm-hmm. Everything was right. Would I do it again? Probably, but also a darn good chance not. Of course, now I've got a lot of better equipment than I did then as well too, with stealth vision scopes.
You bet.
And
yeah.
Hornady ammo's come even more so a long way since what I was using. But that was a lucky shot a long way out there. But I can also tell you about some that where I was shooting at a buck that I rattled up that was about maybe 20 steps away. And one that comes to mind in particular was an old 6-point that we'd been hunting on this ranch. I mean, we had hunted him every way you possibly can, and he was probably about I have no idea how old he was. I know he's 8+. That I can tell you. His inside spread on this South Texas place was probably about 9 inches, but he had about 5.5, 6-inch bases and 6 points, brow tine and back
Heavy,
tine and
yeah.
beam. Real massive, kind of laid over to one side. I hit the horns together, and this buck comes charging in. Of course, I was hunting with handguns like I did a lot during that time frame. This buck came running in, and I mean, he stops out there at about 40 steps, and I'm going, oh my gosh, this is absolutely perfect. Well, I was shaking so hard, I had to talk myself into settling down. And when I pulled the trigger, I had a cameraman with me. Ray Boone was with me at the time, and my bullet hit about halfway between me and the deer, kind of thing. And of course, deer runs off, and immediately Ray goes, "Oh my!" Ray starts laughing, kind of thing. I turn around, look. He said, well, "What happened?" I said, "Man, I just got excited. I just absolutely blew it. I mean, here was the deer I'd been looking for all hunting season long." But I missed him. I missed him by probably about 20 steps.
It happens. I don't have time to tell this one, but you've heard the story on a muzzleloader hunt out there around Fort Stockton years ago on the actually what is now the Longfellow Ranch out there.
Right.
A muzzleloader hunt with a powder charge that blew out of the barrel, or blew out of the dispenser when I was pouring it down in the barrel. I missed a big old, but I finally got it. The old desert mule deer buck, he just startled around just a couple of hops, and I was below a rock and I reloaded, and I come back over that rock, and it shocked me because a whitetail would have been over the mountain. He'd have been gone.
Oh, yeah.
But, that was, I didn't know much about hunting a mule deer, but there's 20 does and 2 smaller bucks and the good one that I've got mounted, He just hopped around. He was like 85 yards. The second shot, I had all the powder in there, and I got him.
You got a full powder charge loaded.
I had a full charge. I had 70 grains back then. That's what I was, Now, if you're not shooting 100
or
150,
oh my goodness, yeah.
I still shoot it. I shoot the CVA muzzleloaders a lot, and I still shoot 100 grain. So, well, Larry, I tell you what, I have enjoyed our visit. I know our friends from northern Arkansas up around Fort Smith all the way down Cameron, Arkansas, all through Texas, and got a lot of West Texas and Panhandle friends too. East Texas. People enjoy. I've been told that they enjoy our casual visits each week, Larry. And let's sign a pact. Keep this going about another, at least. I'll sign up for 10 years. How about you?
I tell you what, I'm right there with you. That I've so enjoyed this and really appreciate everybody listening to us, and can't wait to be back with you next week around the campfire.
Folks, I want to introduce you to Vineyard Max. Now, this is an awesome deer attractant, a food attractant that's made with hammer-milled grape skin, dried hammer-milled grape skins. It has a mixture of rice bran and also corn chops. Very effective. Deer can smell the scent of grapes from a long way, and it brings them in. I've used it in West Texas out with Larry Weissoon, and we were out there where deer are not even exposed to grapes, and they came right in. Also, Vineyard Max has a very good line of game and fish feeders. Check them out online, vineyardmax.net. Friends, Mr. Larry Weissoon is going to tell you about the finest hunting optics that we have ever found.
Look, these are called Stealth Vision. They come from Crockett, Texas. Dr. John McCall developed them. They're 34 millimeter tubes as opposed to the narrower tubes, so more light transmission. They have a little green light that comes on. That scope is leveled because that's when you want to pull the trigger. They have an optional lighted reticle as well too, and a whole lot of other products. And folks can learn more about them by going to stealthvision.com.
I want to tell you about a one-stop shop for everything related to game feeders and fish feeders, Ultramatic feeders. I've been using components and feeders from Ultramatic feeders for 20-something years, I guess. They have the remote, which you can remotely activate your feeder with, the timer, which is the most simple timer that I've ever found on a game feeder. And then the eliminator. Check these out. They are worked on actually on centrifugal force, and they seal off the corn supply so coons and squirrels can't get to the corn. Check them out. Ultramatic feeders, you could go online to ultramaticfeeders.com. Folks, this segment is made possible by Smoking Tex electric smokers that I've been using a long, long time. Enough hunting, if there is such a thing as enough hunting talk. It's time to talk about fishing. So what do you say we all load up in the old pickup, head up to beautiful Lake Texoma up on the Texas-Oklahoma border, and let's check in with our buddy Bill Carey with Striper Express, talk a little striper fishing. Bill, good morning to you, buddy.
Well, good morning, Luke, and all y'all out in radio land.
I hope Mr. Carey is doing well up there with Striper Express. I know that this is the time of year when I think about you've already shifted to not being out on the water at the break of day, but getting out there a little bit later in the morning when the sun starts warming things up and people don't have to worry about, well, to be quite honest with you, being out in the cold before daylight, do they? You know?
That's right. That's right. I always joke, no ice on our eyes. We go out at 9 o'clock in the morning now. We'll do that all winter until the time change in March.
Yeah.
You're right, folks. It's all for the right reasons. And, a couple hours of solar heat on your back is welcomed on a cool day.
Oh, for sure, Bill. Well, the striper pattern, it is, I consider this the big, kind of the beginning of winter, although, the warmer the weather we've had has been so warm that later, the topwater, that type of bite lasted longer than normal. But as a rule, it's jig fishing, and it's the mainstay, right, from now through the winter?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We finished our 7-month topwater season. It did go longer. It lasted till mid-month. We started in late April, and it went longer this year because it was warmer. But now we have got thousands and thousands of seagulls here. We call them the birds, and we are jig fishing under the birds. The best tool you can have is a good pair of binoculars. When you clear that harbor, get them binoculars out and look for your first group of birds. What's going on, folks, is the fish school up. Stripers are schooling fish, and they push the bait to the surface. And it's similar to summer, but they're not busting on the water. They're just pushing the bait to the surface where the seagulls see them, and they come in and start dipping that bait, and you get a drift going. And, fishermen are known not to lie unless their lips are moving. But what I say is, it's so good you got to be here to believe it.
That's true, Bill. And so I'll throw a little tip in too. Now, your folks fishing with you don't have to do this. I always do. I bring my own binoculars. I keep some going, and the guide, he's busy hooking and unhooking fish and running the boat, and he's got a striper guide's got his hands full out there with say three people or four, whatever, in the boat.
Yeah,
but
multiple hookups. Multiple hookups.
That's right. So I've got my binoculars over my neck, and I'll be a little slack time. I'll be scanning for birds myself, and that helps. Anybody's spots happens to be looking in a certain direction, see a bunch of seagulls hovering. Hey, look here, Bill, look over there. You can't have eyes 360 degrees, but spot the birds And then, Bill, tell us, maybe folks that haven't fished for this type of fishing, how do you approach? Say you got some gulls diving and picking up the shad on the surface. There's stripers underneath them. So then what? What's the next move?
Well, what I ask you people is to look at your clock and look at 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to midnight again. And I tell people, you tell me that you see birds at 3 o'clock. Looks like about a mile away. And then what we do is while we're approaching, this is the most important thing. Birds will always be flying into the wind, but they might not be going that way.
Mm-hmm.
So watch which way the school is going and go get in front of it and let it come to you, because these are big schools. They can be a quarter of a mile long, and they are so thick from anywhere like 5 to 30 foot down. And so you just approach the birds, get in front of them, let them come to you. And it can be, well, heck, in this time of year, you can get on a school of birds that you just drift the same speed as they're moving, and you don't ever have to start the motor.
And you stay in the action. And Bill, something that I've learned fishing up there with you guys for many, many years, when you're in that school, you're not going to be able to. There's stripers all around you if you're at a big school, so you're not necessarily casting to a flock of active birds. Yeah, there might be a pod of fish that's pushed a big old bunch of shad to the surface, but don't worry about that. Just keep that jig in the water. There's probably stripers under your boat.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Luke, I tell people, just get it out there. And I said, don't try and throw it over the moon, because you're going to want it to fall.
Yeah.
And you don't want to get too far away from that so you can feel and get a good hook set. So just lob it out there. Count to 5. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Cock your handle. If you ain't got a fish yet, just start a medium retrieve. If you want to, you can shake it. You can jig it. We all got our ways of jigging.
Oh, yeah.
But just a straight retrieve and hold on, because we're getting multiple hookups. These fish are in a frenzy. They love this cooler water, and we'll have 3, 4, 5 hookups at the same time.
The winter, Bill, with the normal, winter patterns is right up a striper's alley, is one way to put it, because they're a saltwater fish, and the worst conditions, as a general rule for fishing for stripers, is just, you think, oh man, it's perfect weather. There's no wind, and well, that's not. I mean, not to say you can't catch them, you can, but that's not the best. Now, there's one other thing, and we've got time to discuss this.
Sure.
Is of course, we've had a warmer than normal, I think, fall so far, but it's about to get. There's going to be some cold weather in here. That's when into December and January on the dead sticking. That's coming up, isn't it?
Yeah, that's cold water.
Yeah.
I got one guy that'll start doing it in December, but really after the first of the year, because I tell people, remember December. It's our second favorite month of the year, and I know we will have maybe 1 or 2 northers. Those are cold fronts, folks. But normally, we're not. It's not as cold. I started realizing this 10 years ago when I look at pictures and people aren't dressed like they used to be. So December's warmer. I call it the peak of the fall, even though winter has already started. But, I'm still telling people to dress outward in.
Yeah.
Now in January, I'll say dress inward out with long johns, warm socks.
Yeah.
But always be prepared. Old Boy Scout motto. But overall, you're right. It's mild. It's milder.
It is. We'll talk a bunch more about the dead sticking, and it's a lethal, especially with the thumper in the boat. And Bill, people are listening to this all over now with the podcast too. That probably a lot of people's never caught a striper, and a whole bunch of people's never even maybe made it to Texoma. But the thumper is a tool. Folks, if you can think of a rubber mallet. If you just had a rubber mallet in your hand and you thump the bottom of the boat, that's basically what it does. And that sound transmits down below the boat. Now, it turns these stripers on, and it turns sandbass, whitebass, sandbass, feeding fish, schooling fish.
It's incredible. It is incredible. They're curious creatures.
Yeah.
And folks, these thumpers we have are in a box, like a battery box.
Yeah.
And like Luke says, it's got an electric motor and it's got a volume switch for RPMs. And you set it at a speed where it's going thump, 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 thump. And these fish, it's unbelievable. You can carry fish with you while you're drifting. They're just curious. They hear that and they want to know what's going on.
I guess, who knows what a fish thinks or if he thinks, but I think it has a lot to do with feeding. You know, he's thinking that's some sound that does relate to a feeding frenzy. And but I used to be dubious of that. I used to fish with a lady, Mary Ross was her name. She was a sand bass guide.
Cedar Creek.
Yes, her name, Mary Ross, the Mary Angler. That was her name. And nice lady. And she would take, she wore flip-flops, you know, and she would take those and splash them on the water, and then she would take her foot and just thump on the bottom of the boat with her foot. And I thought, what in the world? Is this some kind of a promotional? I didn't know what she was doing. She says, Luke, I promise you this will work. But now take it to the thumper, the electric thumper. You look at your you can be out, and the stripers do get in some, you know, deeper water in the winter when it gets really cold. Yeah. Turn that thumper on and look at your graph, Bill. And you can see them coming in to that.
It's crazy.
It is. I like that kind of fishing. Bill, I'm told we are out of time for this segment. Striper Express is not hard to find, is it? You know?
No, sir. No, you can give us a holler anytime, folks, if you want a phone number.
Yep.
It's 903-786-4477. That is 903-786-4477.
Bill, thank you a lot. And next time we may talk some more about this upcoming, the dead sticking thing.
Dead sticking, you betcha.
Folks, let's talk a little outdoor cooking. Let me tell you about an electric smoker that I've been using for 15 years, I guess. Smoking Tex electric smokers. If you're tired of staying up all night keeping that wood fire burning when you're barbecuing, give Smoking Tex a try. They're made to last a lifetime. You can check them out at smokingtex.com. That's SMOKINTEX.com. For seasonings, anything to do with outdoor cooking, all kind of jerky seasonings, sausage seasonings, Butcher Packer Supply. That's butcherpackersupply.com. I think the website is butcher-packer.com.
Big Sam left Seattle in the year of 92 with George Pratt, his partner, and brother Billy too. They crossed the
Friends, this segment is made possible by Platinum Cadillac and Chevrolet in Terrell, Texas. Stop by and visit with my buddy Mr. Justin Rudd and his team of experts and let them put you in a new Chevy pickup or a Cadillac or whatever you might be in the market for. Also, the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma. Check them out at ChoctawHuntingLodge.com. Also made possible by Pyramid Air, your one-stop shop for everything airgun related. Well, friends, more deer hunting talk. How about that? Our guest is Mr. Jeff Rice. Now, Jeff is one of my best buddies. He owns the Buck and Bass Ranch up in East Texas, he and his wife. We're going to talk about some not really late season hunting, but not early season either. We're near the end of November. Things are changing a little bit in the whitetail woods. So, Jeff, thank you for being with us today, buddy.
Oh, as always, glad to join you, my friend.
I think I should give you the opportunity right off the bat. Folks, Jeff does produce our TV show with Larry Weissoon. I know a lot of you watch it. It's called A Sportsman's Life. It's on Carbon TV. You can go to carbontv.com and watch it. It's free. You can watch it on YouTube. But, Jeff, you've been diligently putting together a lot of interesting and informative deer shows here lately. And I've been a little part of some of those, been out in the woods and with you guys. And but actually, right now, one of the changes that I've noticed, and I've had a chance to hunt deer quite a bit, enough to stay tuned into it, the acorn crop in some parts of Texas where we've hunted, there's a pretty heavy acorn crop this year. But by now, I've noticed that a lot of those acorns are soured. There's little worms that get in them. If you've ever opened up an acorn on the ground, you'll open it up with your thumb, and you'll find there's about half of them this year. I found little white worms in there. So the acorn crop, the deer are right now going toward food plots more, aren't they? That's what I found, Jeff.
Yeah, I was hunting out all last week, and definitely the acorns are on the ground everywhere, and you don't hear near as many or any really falling anymore like they've been. I think this year was a bumper acorn crop. At least it was in Northeast Texas.
Yep.
And finally they're starting to, like you said, sour and get worms and that type of thing, and that usually happens toward the end of November. And with that comes food plots, and I always take the time to put in. Really, I put in 2 food plots. I put in a big food plot, and then I do a small one back in the woods, Luke, and I know you've seen it back in there. And,
Yep.
It's one where you don't really have to have machinery to get back there and do it, but just bring a big rake and then just do a big patch somewhere. And
Yeah.
I've got a blind back there where I've done that. And you should see it looks so beautiful. And those deer are coming into those food plots now. They're finally, I think they're giving up on the acorns because they're not tasty anymore. So
Yep.
they move on to the next tastiest thing. And really, a lot of people put corn feeders out, and yeah, they work. They'll bring animals in. There's no question about it. But I tell you what, a food plot, and especially one like way back in the woods where, it's kind of hidden, is really a key to bringing in some nice deer. And I'm seeing some good deer, just not seeing the right one yet,
I'm with you. The thing about it, it's always amazed me how those little shoots, whatever plant you're planting, back in the day, it was we called them in Texas, we call them oat patches. Everybody planted oats, and they still work good, but all different types of plants. But how those deer instinctively know that those little green shoots are what they need. I mean, it's like candy to a sugar addict, really. I mean, it always amazed me. I mean, it's just a little old bitty sprout coming up, but they wear them out. So that's a good point. Earlier in the season, the oak motts and bottoms with lots of oak trees, and that was key, at least in the parts of Texas where I've hunted this year. But right now, and thing about it, to me, setting on an oat field or a green field, we call it, early afternoon on a good crisp day, those deer seem to come out more so. Like they'll start hitting those things mid-afternoon a lot. And people usually, Jeff, when you think about a food plot, a lot of people think it's a 5-acre food plot or 1 acre. You brought up a good point, but these little food plots, little clearing in the woods or whatever, like the place that you're describing, they can be golden. Granted, they can get hit hard. They can eat them pretty quick, but they are those little isolated places like that. You don't have to have a 5-acre food plot to be effective, do you?
No, you really don't. All you have to have, Luke, is rain, which we've had very little of, unfortunately. But it's starting to sprout up. I mean, I've got a kind of a hodgepodge of stuff growing out there. I do have the oats and the barley, and I've got some triticale planted, and I also have some radishes and some turnips out there. So they're starting to come up. They're probably 3-4 inches tall. But the interesting thing is, if you go in and closely inspect your plants as they're growing, like I was out there last week and looking at them, and the tops are being chewed off. So these animals are coming in. All you have to do is take a look at the tops of the plants, and if you start seeing them being chewed off, they're coming in. And again, a little spot back in the woods is a great way to bring that's what I shot my biggest buck on my property at that same food plot. He came right into that food plot, and I shot him there with a bow and arrow. But it's a great way to bring animals to a spot, because they love that stuff. They need greens in their diet, and if it's available, you betcha they're going to be in there.
You bet. Folks, we recently had a outdoor get together. I think we named it the Celebration of the Outdoors in Seagoville, Texas, and And Bill Carey was there. We'll shift a little bit from deer hunting, which is kind of hard to do right now, but Bill was there talking about the striper fishing. Bill owns Striper Express up at Lake Texoma, and he said those gulls are coming in there soon. So I'm thinking if we can tear ourselves out of a deer stand, which I know we can muster the strength to do that, get up there with Bill before long. And folks, Jeff always has a video camera. I have one too that I film segments of it, but Jeff produces A Sportsman's Life. It's really his baby. I mean, he puts it together, and Larry and I film stuff, and we're part of it, of course. But Jeff puts it together. That would make a good winter show for A Sportsman's Life for people to be watching pretty soon. Jeff, we get up there and
wouldn't have to twist my arm. I was talking to Bill at the event as well. And
yeah,
he's like, you need to come up, and I'm like, you know what? I can get out of a deer stand. I got no problem with that, because going to visit Bill up there at Lake Texoma and Striper Express, our friends Chris and Bill up there, and get out in the water, you can't find a better thing to do this time of year. It's beautiful up there, and the striper fishing is amazing. It truly is.
It is. Winter has always been really my favorite time to fish up there, and I've done it, fish with them well, Bill started Striper Express 41 years ago, so I guess 40 years ago was the first time I ever fished. That's back when Bill was guiding, but there's something about those gulls come out by the thousands, and they start circling and diving. The stripers in the winter don't really break the surface, bust the surface water like they do other times of the year, but they push that shad up, and what you can see is these little dimples popping around, and sometimes they'll swirl on the surface, but it's not that top water explosion like a school would do in the fall or spring or summer. But man, it's a lot of fun to get up there. Jeff, tell our friends how to watch A Sportsman's Life. It's a weekly thing, friends, that's put out. Jeff puts it together and puts it on YouTube every week and Carbon TV. It's easy to find, really, isn't it, Jeff?
Yeah, it is. It like you said earlier, just YouTube and or carbontv.com is where our show is placed. And folks, get out there and check out some of our shows. You can keep up with Luke, Larry, and I pretty much every week. We do a weekly show. We are on season 5. We'll be wrapping up season 5 the end of this year. But that's 52 shows a year we put together, and it's really a lot of adventures and things out in the outdoors. And I find I'll bet you there's something for everybody out there that we do. I mean, there's fishing, there's hunting, there's hiking, there's cooking, you name it, we do it.
Yep.
And it's just a lot of fun. We invite all of our listeners to go out there and take time to check us out and leave us some feedback.
You bet. And it is a weekly. Sometimes Jeff has the show out with the information or the film that we did the week before. So it's not something that you would want to, it's not something filmed this season and you watch it next season. It was filmed within days or a week or so of when you're watching it. So, and another thing, I put a little disclaimer out there, Jeff. Don't always expect to each show to depict a 30-pound striper being caught or a 200-inch whitetail being shot. Our motto is pretty much like it happens, so that's what to expect. Yep. Jeff, thanks a lot. I had fun talking, and I know our guest did, talking about the late season food plots. They're going to be the thing to start hunting over right now. And then a little striper fishing too. So get you back. Maybe next time we'll let you talk some filming technique. How about that?
That sounds great.
For about the past decade, I've been hunting editor for Airgun Hobbyist magazine. I think the only magazine devoted strictly to airgun shooting and hunting in the country. Well, in that length of time, I've learned quite a bit about big bore air guns and smaller calibers too. A spot to go to that if you're interested in air guns, you need to know about Pyramid Air. The website is PYRAMYD, pyramidair.com. They have anything and everything you need, from the guns themselves, the big bores or the smaller calibers, to the accessories. Just remember pyramidair.com, and there's a number when you get on the website if you need to call and talk to somebody. Give them a buzz, and they can fill you in on little details that you might need to know about shooting or hunting with big bore air guns.
the snowflakes fall as winter calls, and time just seems to fly.
Friends, this segment is brought to us by CVA muzzleloaders. In my opinion, the very best muzzleloaders in the world, the ones that I shoot. You can check them out online, cva.com. Kuby's Wild Game Processing and Kuby's Restaurant in Dallas, and Vineyard Max, maker of some awesome deer attractant and some very fine game feeders and fish feeders, located down in Nacogdoches, Texas. Check them out at vineyardmax.net. Folks, I want to introduce you to some good friends of mine at Dash for Cash Pawn Shop in Seagoville, Texas, located at 133 Hall Street. The phone number is 972-287-3121. Go by there and talk with Gary or Randy, the owner. They're great people. They've got some great prices. Again, that's the Dash for Cash Pawn Shop, Seagoville, Texas, 972-287-3121. Well, friends, this is Luke. I hope you've enjoyed our show thus far. We've had some interesting guests, some down-home conversations about the real world, as we call it, hunting and fishing, the way things really, some TV shows and some radio shows talk all about the monster 170 bucks and the 10-pound bass, but around here we try to keep it real, folks. You know, if you listen long, you've already discovered that. We had that fun event there in Seagoville, Texas. You heard Larry and I, we've talked about it a little bit, but I did the cooking. It was there at the Dash for Cash, Seagoville, Texas, a pawn shop there. Randy and Gary, the folks that run the place, all super nice people. But they said, what are we going to cook? We want to feed a bunch of people that come by to celebrate the outdoors with us. And for lack of a better term, I said tacos, fajitas, whatever we want to call them. And they said, yeah, well, tell us how you make them. So I'm going to tell you how I fed a bunch of people. Now, they're not fajita. Larry Weiss soon kids me, says fajitas have to be skirt meat beef. So I said, well, when you're in a Mexican restaurant, you want chicken fajitas. He laughed. He said, well, that's not real fajitas. But I made this from pork, and here's how I did it. I had a pork shoulder, pretty good sized pork shoulder, and then I had a whole pork loin. Now, the pork shoulder, has some fat in it. The pork loin is strictly, the only fat on a pork loin is just a little bit on the outside. So I have a Smoke Intex electric smoker. You put some wood in a firebox and slide it over an element, and you turn the dial where you want the temperature to be, and you forget it. Well, that's what I used. I cooked I put the pork loin on and the pork shoulder one evening before bedtime. I seasoned them both with the Fiesta brand fajita seasoning. Pretty heavy, a lot. You might say I put a rub on both of them with that. It's not too salty. That's why I like it. But plus, it has all the seasonings, the spices that you would need for for fajitas. So anyway, I put those in there with some hickory wood. And I actually left them uncovered, and I set the temperature at 200, and I let them cook for about 13 hours, give or take. Just about the next morning when I woke up, I went out there and cut the smoker off and let everything cool down where I could work with it. So then I removed most of the fat from that pork shoulder. Of course, the loin was plenty lean, so remove most of the fat. Then I just kind of chopped all that pork shoulder up into small pieces, and I did the same with the pork loin. Chopped it up. Then I mixed them all together. Well, at this point, I added more of the fajita seasoning, kind of to taste. So in a big old cast iron skillet, I had about 4 good-sized jalapenos chopped up, no onion, but I had the jalapeno and a handful of garlic in there. So I sauteed those just so they wouldn't be crisp, and put them in there with all that chopped up, we'll call it fajita meat. And there was a bunch of it. So much that I wondered if the people would eat a portion of it, to be honest with you. So Randy, the owner of the Dash for Cash pawn shop, he went to a Mexican restaurant local and got all the condiments you'd need: cilantro, chopped onions, lime, to squeeze on the tacos, pico. So then the hot sauce, the salsa verde, and the red sauce. We had it all. And then we had a bunch of flour and corn tortillas. So the crew started coming in. The masses started showing up about noon, a little before noon. And there'd be a few come in, and then, we'd tell them it's all free, ready to eat. Just come right over here. And my job was keeping the tortillas hot. So I didn't want them to just eat a tortilla right out of the bag. So I had my old cast iron skillet going, and I would just heat up, pan full of flour and corn. Mostly the flour tortillas is what most people ate. But I'd heat those up and put them over there for the people to eat. And I was still concerned. I said, I have cooked way too much meat. And, what are we going to do with this after it's been out, on a steam table? But as the day went on, the bottom line is we had our event. We ended about 3 o'clock. Well, I looked. One person came up, a fella, and he said, "Oh, they said you had some fajitas out here." And by then, I literally had a handful of fajita meat left. It was all consumed. And I said, "Sir, we've got enough to make you 2 tacos or whatever." And of course, all the condiments were still plenty of those. So he made 2 of them. But that's a good way for you to say you're going to feed a lot of people. Yeah, we could have cooked beef brisket. To be quite honest with you, I like the pork better. Now, beef brisket is awesome. We all love brisket, and all Texans do. I do. But that's the thought. I mean, you can shop around and get quality pork on sale for a fraction of the cost. And trust me, they may not be the real fajita, but there was no complaints. People really, they enjoyed this. So, I think if outdoor people would say, wherever you live, talk to local people, a pawn shop where they sell a lot of guns and fishing tackle, like Dash for Cash in Seagoville. Talk to your local people and set up your own little outdoor events. Of course, Larry Weissoon was with us. I was there. We were signing books and sold a few books. And it's good for business, yes, but it's also a whole bunch of fun. We had I asked people that I knew bring some chairs, and we stay. Of course, a lot of people were inside, the pawn shop there, but a lot of people were out. Most of them were out where that food was, and then they'd go in and shop, But it was a fun thing. So that's a tip for you. If you just have a big family get together, consider making these fajitas. Call them tacos. My Mexican friends have a name for those made out of pork. I can't pronounce it, but you get the picture. It's a whole lot like a fajita. Folks, I hope everyone's enjoyed our show. We've had a ball, all of us, visiting with you. Tune in next week at the same time. We're going to have some more fun talking some more hunting and fishing. Folks, that about wraps our show up for this week. I've enjoyed being with you, and I hope you've had a good time, too. And, folks, we're also brought to you by the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma, located about, 45 minutes west of Hugo, Oklahoma, owned by the Choctaw Nation. It's about 45,000 acres of awesome mountain, country, hills, valleys, loaded with game. Lots of eastern turkey, and they do eastern turkey hunts if you're looking for a spot to hunt turkey in the spring.